Greetings, my name is Travis Orbin, I play in Darkest Hour, and this is my rig. Okay, this is a Pearl Vision drum set. It's very old, very dirty, probably about a decade old, and it's like a mid-range kit. It's birch shells, and they sound quite nice once they have some new heads on them. And they cut really well, which is important in this band, live. And I use 2 floor toms, square sizes, 14 by 14, 16 by 16. And the reason for that is, in my home studio I still use a rack tom, but when we cut the self-titled record, we used a dual floor tom setup, and so I have since moved to that. And the bass drum is 18 by 20, and the snare drum is a 6.5 by 14 Pearl Sensitone brass. There's nothing in particular that drew me to this kit. There's a few things that I can point out that would be of interest. First of all, like I mentioned earlier, it is a mid-range kit, so the price goes accordingly, which is nice because I do endorse Pearl drums, but I still pay a certain percentage, which is nice and easy on the wallet. And then one other important thing is, even in my home studio kit, I use a natural finish. Because I read long ago on an internet forum that they have to be a bit more selective when it comes to shells when utilizing a natural finish. And everyone knows what you read on the internet is 100% factual. I endorse Remo drumheads. The tops are either Emperor Vintage Coated or Emperor Vintage Clear. The bottoms are clear Emperors. And snare drum batter head is usually an Emperor X coated. In my home studio, I can get away with a controlled sound X, but with this band live, I tend to hit harder, and there's just a lot more aggressive playing in general. So Emperor X, or sometimes a Black X. Usually an Emperor X though, because it has that top end sheen that's nice. And the bottom head on the resonant head on the snare drums is the standard hazy Ambassador. Bass drum is a clear Power Stroke 3. Sometimes I use a coated if I can find it in the store. And of course some mini Phallum slams to protect from the impact. And then I believe the front head, sometimes it's a custom, like a logo head that reflects an artwork, if we're touring on a specific release. Right now it's just a standard Power Stroke 3 Ebony, I believe, Ebony resonant. I endorse Zildjian Cymbals. This is a 21-inch A Mega Bell Ride, 19-inch A Custom Crash, 14-inch Master Sound hi-hats, A Custom as well. All these are A Custom except for the Mega Bell Ride, that's just regular A. 8-inch Splash, 13-inch Master Sound hi-hats, 18-inch Crash, 20-inch, is that a 20-inch? Might be an 18. I'm sorry, that's an 18-inch China. Sometimes there's a utilitarian purpose behind the setup, and sometimes there's a more artistic purpose. For instance, if it's a really aggressive riff and I'm playing what we call the tick-tock beat, which is like a slow blast beat, typically I'll focus on the 13s here for a little more energy and brightness. But I mix it up, like in the Doomsayer verses. I switch between the 13s and the 14s. I start on the 14s, and then midway through the verse I switch to the 13s. So it kind of depends on what the riff dictates, the overall vibe. So I don't know, various things pull me towards various directions, and that's why I'm thankful for having developed the facility that I have, because I can lead with either limb or a combination of limbs. I use straight stands because I don't play an exorbitantly large kit, so straight cymbal stands do it for me just fine. And I use, of course, Pearl Demon Drive direct pedals. Been using those since they debuted the product back in like 2009, I believe. And yeah, that's it. The only non-Pearl hardware item that I own and utilize is the Gibraltar legless hi-hat stand, and that's simply because Pearl does not manufacture a legless hi-hat stand. I endorse Vic Firth drumsticks. I use the Ralph Hardiman Hammer Signature. The model number is SRH2, and it's not the best stick for the drum set. It's really meant for practice, but if it's meant for any drum, it's like inline marching drums, like drum corps. But I started using weighted sticks back in the mid-2000s with the Mike Mangini Zildjian, the old Mike Mangini Zildjian signature. Now he's with Vader. And then I, at one point, upsized to the Vic Firth Magnums, and then from there, upsized once more to the Hammers. And the reason that I went from the Magnums to the Hammers is there's a little more length, which I like, and the tips are barrel tips, which sound much better than the old Magnum tips sounded. Those were kind of like a really pronounced acorn shape, almost kind of circular, and they were quite abrasive on cymbals. Whereas the barrel tip, I've always favored the barrel tips on cymbals. This is not the most unique setup. It's actually quite antiquated, but I just use a classic iPod to run our set. As you can see, there's a playlist, there's all of Deliver Us, and then the Encore. And yeah, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. In-ears, what are these? These are, I've been using them for so long, Ultimate Ears. And these are obviously custom molds. I don't recall the model number, but it's just a pearl saddle style or bicycle seat kind of throne. When we're overseas, usually I get a round throne, which I can still play the gig, but this is a little more comfy. As for Darkest Hour, you can follow us on our Patreon. We're currently hard at work on our 10th record. Hopefully we'll start tracking drums before the end of the year. And as for my own endeavors, TravisOrbin.com.